black cats got Dave N. The white hats, they got Doug. The Google search engine.
Welcome to the Jim Show!
Yeah, we did not practice, but not too bad.
We'll get in sync for more of these. All right.
And this is Jim Boykin, the CEO of Internet Marketing Ninjas.
And this is Ann Smarty, the community manager at Internet Marketing Ninjas, and as well as the head of several other companies as well.
That don't matter.
Extraordinary. So today we have an awesome topic. We were going through the list of topics, and Ann said, "How about authorship?" And I'm like,
Authorship.
"Oh, authorship."
Yes, one of the most
misunderstood
topics in our industry, just because Google came up with its own version of authorship and mixed everything else. So everyone now thinks that when we talk about authorship, it's about Google Plus, which has nothing to do with it.
Exactly. And especially because Google Plus has been going through all sorts of changes. They no longer are reading the rel author tag. That's correct?
Yes.
Okay, so they're no longer reading it. So it used to be if you wrote a piece of content, you would put your name on there and you'd link your name or the Google Plus symbol or something. You would link to your Google Plus page, and Google would be like, okay, we know that this article was written by Bob Smith, and here's his Google Plus page. And then Google also, if someone had ran a search and someone's looking at search results, they often would show the person's picture, which was in Google Plus.
Oh, that worked so well for my search results.
Yeah, I saw your click-through rates.
Crazy.
Higher than mine.
That was crazy.
And then Google at one point said we're not going to show the pictures anymore. I think there was actually a study that said that pay-per-click was losing clicks, which is one of the reasons.
Yeah, one of the reasons, not the only one.
Yeah, and then then Google came out and said we're no longer reading or honoring the rel author tag, and so a lot of people are like, we've been listening to all this authorship stuff, and Google's now no longer reading this tag. It must be that authorship is not a factor or valuable anymore.
Well, first of all, to clear any confusion, Google Plus authorship has never been the ranking factor. It could affect your click-through, which might affect your rankings, but there was no direct ranking signal, so it's never been the signal for search engine. But there is another. Somehow it reminds me of PageRank. It's like everything that we think about PageRank is that those green pixels, and we associate the PageRank algorithm with those signals and say, hey, Google is no longer using that because Google PageRank is not updating, but we just don't see it. It's the same with authorship. We don't see the authors in the search results now, but it doesn't mean that Google doesn't know anything about the authors, not using them in their algorithm.
There was a really good article that was published the day that Google said they're no longer reading the rel author tag by Danny Sullivan, and it was titled something to the effect of Google authorship may be dead, but author rank is not. And that's a really big thing. That's where people confuse it. And there is something called author rank, or agent rank, as Google uses in their patents. And we should probably talk about what it is and how Google measures it. And it's something that there's I believe 4 patents about this as well. Just because they have a patent doesn't mean they're using everything. But maybe I should talk about. Let me start this off with first how does Google find an author for a web page? Part of what they do is when Google is spidering the web, going from page to page to page, they're also looking at these things that they call keys that can identify that a page was written by a specific person. And some of the keys that there could be are things like if there's a name on the top or bottom, like by Ann Smarty, that's a big key. They'll also look at things like a unique email address, bsmith@harvard.com. They'll look at if there's links to social media profiles as well. They'll look to see if there's something in the URL that designates this as a person, tilde B. Smith. And so what they're going to kind of do is they're going to be like, all right, we've come across a page which is written by, we believe, Bob Smith. Through either if you search the email or look at any of these URLs, and the other thing that they're going to do is like they're going to be like, Bob Smith mostly writes about SEO or hotels, whatever the topic is. So they're going to kind of be like, here's the Bob Smith who writes about this particular topic. They may look at other things as well, like do they know where you're from? Do you mention in a profile that you're from Clifton Park, New York? And so, but when Google is spidering the web, going from page to page to page, and they're also looking for, are there keys on this page that can identify that a specific person wrote that page? And when Google finds one of the keys and says, we believe this page was written by a specific person, that page then goes into the author index at Google, right? Think of it as like a separate computer, and in here are only the documents that are authored by people. And so all of the people that are in there, they all have an author score. And the author score is based off of a couple things, but it's I guess the basics of it are, you want to talk a little bit about? I'm picturing your picture that you use in your presentation. So how is the author score scored?
So the more documents and the more other authors cite you in their articles, the higher your author score. The more you get cited. It can be can be just a mention of your name and the book that you've written. Google should catch that up even if there is no link. But Google knows that you are the author, and here are all the other documents that you've written, and here are all other authors that also reference one or all of those documents, and those authors are also get some citations of them. So the higher their author score, the more author score they can give you by citing you. It's probably not only about links. I hope not, because there are other many signals that Google can crawl and figure out. Like if they link to your Twitter profile, they should know that that's your Twitter profile because you mentioned some of the signs that they picked up earlier, like the name of your book. So they will catch that up, that hey, this is the author of that book, and this is how many citations they got. So that's the author's score.
So, for example, if they feel that this particular author has authored 125 documents across the web, they're going to look at, all right, well, who else has cited these documents? How trusted are the sites that cite these documents? And are there other known authors that have cited this document or these documents, and how trusted are those authors? And then there's as well going to be the topical relevance. So, if I write something about hotels, I'm not an expert at hotels. I may not score as high as if I write about internet marketing. But it's kind of interesting because and some of the link building that we do here at Internet and our marketing ninjas, some of the content marketing that we do, for some of it we're writing highly trusted content, and we're trying to get citations from teachers and educators and orgs and old trusted websites where we write to them and say, hey, here's another great resource. We think you should add it to your page. And we find that about 25 to 30% of all the links that we get that way, that there's something on that page that links to our client that is one of the keys that Google can follow. So when we look at the value of a link, part of it is, well, how trusted is the site, how trusted is the page, how trusted are the other links that are on that page. But if there's an author name on there, then that author score can be taken into consideration. It was interesting. I was down in New York City 2 days ago, talking to one of our clients down there, and we got to talking about the links, and we pulled up some of the latest links that had been achieved to their highly trusted content. And the first link on there was it was like rsmith.com. It was like someone's name, and the site only had 7 backlinks to it from 7 other unique websites. And at first glance, you can be like, well, it's really not too powerful of a website. We go to the page, and the person's name is all over the site. The person's name is part of the URL. The guy's email is on the bottom of every page. The guy, I think I can say this, the the guy was a pilot, and the site that we were doing had something to do with airplanes. And we got a link from a pilot's hobby website. And we took the person's name because, well, we know that Google not only knows that it's a link from this website, which only has 7 backlinks to it, they're trusted, whatever, but not a whole lot going to there. But Google knows it's also a vote from this particular person. He's authored this page, which links to our client. His name is clearly on there. And so we put the guy's name in quotes, and after it put airplane. Figure like anyone that's talking about this fairly unique name in quotes and the word airplane, that's probably our guy. And we hit enter, and there was 2,900 results. We're like, wow, like this guy's referenced a lot. I said, well, let's actually add cite:/edu to the end of the search, and let's see how many references he has from EDUs. Hit enter, there was 29 references from this guy, documents that were written on EDUs. A whole bunch of them were PDFs. I'm like, oh my God, like, he has all these references from teachers on EDUs, and then I said, well, let's see if he has any .govs by chance. So we added cite:/.gov, and the number was 29 again. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy has references from 29 .govs as well. Like, and Google knows that it's not just the value of getting a citation from someone like that isn't always, and here's where Moz and Majestic and Ahrefs fail with their numbers, is they don't take into account, like, oh my God, you got a link from, Bob Smith, who's, referenced by all these EDUs and govs and other airplane places, and like he is a super authority in here, and the value of getting a citation from him is huge. And here's some of the interesting stuff. I'll get into a little bit of the ways you can utilize this as well. So, like, let's say that we wrote an article about, I don't know, some kind of trusted article. We're trying to get trusted links from trusted sites and trusted people. And if we write something maybe on, I don't know, the history of aviation, for someone whose website has something to do with airplanes, and let's say we're suddenly getting citations from like people like the one I just mentioned. We also had 3 .govs going to that client as well in 2 months. It was really cool, and several EDUs. But in any case, where was I? So on these particular pages about the history of aviation, if they have an author on that page, then Google's like, all right, all these trusted people and all these trusted websites are linking to a page on client website, but it's not just any old page. This page is authored by Jimmy Twain or whatever personas or whatever real people, whatever name is on there. If suddenly you have a name, then Google's like, well, this person has authored this many pages. And let's say, I don't know, you got like 30 trusted pages where you're doing things to get highly trusted places to reference you. And if you have a name on those pages, that name is really powerful. You have a really highly trusted author because they're getting references from trusted places and from other trusted people. And here's an interesting thing. Whenever we get a link for a client, we always go to that page and be like, is there an author? So we're looking for keys ourselves. Like, does Google know that this isn't just a link from this website, but it's a link from an individual? And I don't know, we've gotten over 1 million links in the past several years, I'm guessing. I don't know, we've gotten a lot of links. And I asked the team a few months ago, I said, hey guys, when you guys look for an author on any of the web pages, have you ever found like one of the keys to see if there's an author is, do they link to their Google Plus page, for a while? And I asked the guys, hey, anyone ever, like, when they spotted an author, was it through like they linked to their Google Plus account? And they're like, never, ever. Like all these old trusted orgs and EDUs and govs and K-12s and stuff, like it was their name, it was part of the URL, it was an email, it was this, that, like, but it was never, oh yeah, they were linking to their Google Plus. It's like, you wonder why when Google says we're no longer reading it. Well, that's real old trusted sites really weren't using it, SEOs and news people, but how do I say, some of the most trusted places in the world weren't using it. It's interesting, I should probably mention, I'm sorry if I'm on a little roll here, but, in Google's patents about this authorship, agent rank, they talk about something, if you're a really old school SEO, you may remember an algorithm called Hilltop. In a nutshell, what Google has said is, to vaguely paraphrase here, is they've designated certain areas of the web that they feel have the most trusted authors. Okay, think of it as like your PageRank 10s or your author ranks of 10s. And like Google has said, we found different areas across the web where we feel it's kind of the 10s, and what they link out to in a sense is 9s, and kind of things flow down from these areas of the web where Google has said, here's the most trusted authors. But they don't say where those areas are. And so like at first when everyone's reading these patents over, we're like, well, maybe the authors of 10 are, people that have written books actually, or they're on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or, they've published physical or whatever books. Maybe they're the 10s, the people that are the most trusted. Or maybe it's people that write for like the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or major magazines or publications. Like maybe they're the ones, and maybe it's famous bloggers or wiki editors. Like no one really knows where Google has kind of said here's the most trusted areas. But part of what we suspect is that the most trusted areas are actually teachers, is what I would suspect is actually the most trusted area, because teachers tend to have an area of the web about their focus, their specialty. They tend to have like a resource section where they link out to other highly trusted stuff, and they tend not, and highly stuff about their area of focus, and they're not corrupted by SEOs. It's not as if you can go to a K-12 teacher and be like, or a college professor and be like, hey, here's $300. Can you link to this page using this phrase? Like they're gonna be like, are you kidding me? Like this page is linking out to EDUs and govs and orgs and highly trusted stuff, and I'm only linking to stuff that's gonna make me look good. And like, why would I ever want to link to whatever? But if you're like, hey, studying the history of aviation, and you've got a wonderful page with great resources to other things about the history of aviation, and that was a huge help to me, and hey, here's a couple of other resources that I found that you may want to add to your page that are really good resources as well, and one of them could be a client link, and the person who looks at it is going to decide yay or nay, and probably out of all the email requests they get from everyone in the world, probably 99% of the time it's nay, because it's like you're a dirty SEO, and you're asking for me to link to your commercial phrase or something. And but if we're like, hey, this is a really great page, and they look it over and they're like, wow, yeah, this is a great resource, I should add it to my page. And if they do, hey, great. And if that person happens to be a college professor and they're linking to our site, wow, that's incredible. And if that person, and if we have an author on our site, that's like, wow, that's incredible as well. And let's say you've got a super highly trusted author. They don't write a lot, but what they write gets really highly trusted links and highly trusted citations from highly trusted people. And if, say, now you've got like an author rank of 9, like, wow, you're getting links from professors and teachers and orgs, and like, wow, you have a really high author rank. Let's say you were to go into some of your pages, just a couple of your pages, and say, this page was last updated by, and you have that name, and you link that name to your profile page of that author, and Google says, this person's written all these educational stuff, and has edited some of the main pages. You want to go in and edit those main pages as well. Maybe even put a quote from the author, like, oh, when I shop for blue widgets, this is my favorite place. Link to his bio page or something, or be like, this page was last updated by Bob. Like, do something to update the page, and in a sense, you can give that page a nice boost if you have a highly trusted author. But we're not talking about someone who's like, well, we got a blogger, and they blog every day, and they're kind of talking to the wind, and there's no signals to it, and and it's like they're producing all this empty content. Ooh, let's go add this author to one of our main pages. Like, it can lower the value of it, because now Google is like, oh, this is Bob Smith, and Bob Smith writes a lot of stuff that doesn't get a lot of citations. Yeah, so like, it's not going to help your page any, and may.
Yeah, I just want to mention one good exercise that that Jim already mentioned. We've discussed their Google Raters Guide, Google Quality Raters Guide previously, and as far as we've heard, a good portion of it is dedicated to the expertise of the person who wrote the page. So what they encourage their quality raters to do is to get that name and search it in Google to see if that's person is really trusted and what else they do and in what industry. So that's the good exercise each time that you want to find out how strong your author rank is, and or how strong the author rank of the person who links to you is. That's a good exercise to do each time. Search for that name in Google and see what else Google knows about that person.
Yeah, I often do like the name in quotes. You got to be careful if there's like a middle initial sometimes, depending on how unique the name is. And then I'll like put the topic area, like airplanes or widgets or whatever. And then often I'll look as well if they have a lot of references. I'll do like a site:/edu, site:/gov. Do they have references from those? Site:/org. But going through the results, it's often like, wow, this person has their own wiki page and they've authored 3 books, and oh my God,
Amazon,
like,
yeah, the Amazon reviews.
It's a huge thing that I think very few SEOs understand the power and importance of authorship, and I think a lot of bloggers out there, I guess the majority of them may not have a high one. I guess, that's where if you're blogging, it doesn't do as good to just keep writing stuff that doesn't get any signals to it, because you might be producing a very large website, but your author rank is 0 because you're not getting references. It's another case where, it's all about quality. It's not writing 1,000 pages and having a 0 author score. It's writing 50 pages that get lots of references and having that high author score. It's not.
Yeah, on that, while we are there, would you recommend putting your, if you say have a strong author, is it recommended to put the name in the, say, footer to have it site-wide?
No, because if you have like a 10,000 page website, then Google's going to be like, this person has written 10,000 pages. And
yeah, you cannot. It's like,
the majority of them are
it's
not going to.
pretty much the same with Panda. You cannot support, like, if that all score cannot support so many pages, so it will drag you down.
Yeah, and again, it's, in simple math, it's looking at how many documents have you authored and how many citations do you have to those. And then you want to keep the pages low.
Yeah, it's the ratio, which is important. I hope that helps.
Authorship.
Thank you, Jim, for
It's
sharing
more valuable
those.
than you may not know, and if we keep those in there, like, don't get me in trouble. I don't know, like, I guess there's really no way to get in trouble with it. If you've got a good author, you should utilize them to edit the content on some of your main pages.
And let them really review it.
Yeah.
Be
review
honest.
it. Tell them
Like,
to write
hey,
something.
you're an expert in that industry.
Yeah.
You should review and see how good the product is, and if it's really good.
And then link
we'll
the
put
name
that
to
on
the bio page. So put a bio page on the website for that name, and even on the bio page, you can be like, here's some of the most trusted articles that I've written. All your stuff that got references, and here's 10 pages that I've recently updated.
Yep.
Put all of them right there.
And here are my social, most active social profiles to make it all for Google, to make it easier to connect all the dots.
And then ideally, you want to be found as well beyond that website. If you can get published in other places in that industry, that's going to help than just be someone that just writes for their own place. So the more places you're at, and the more exposure that your name has, the better as well. But yeah, a lot of people don't take advantage of it, and
sadly,
they just don't. Well, it's kind of good for Google, because Google's like, a lot of SEOs were using this Google Plus and setting up the authorship, and now that we're not showing the picture and Google Plus is going away, like, SEOs aren't thinking about this as much. A lot of them are like, oh, Google Plus gone, don't need to worry about authorship. I can't even believe I listened to that stuff for a bit, and it's like,
finally, Google can see the real signals when SEOs are not any longer
so SEOs
interested.
are off on other stuff, and they're not thinking about like authorship, and it's like it's more important than ever.
When done right.
When done right. If you need help, contact the ninjas. We can help you to
We know how to do it right.
Bye. Bye.
See you at the next show.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome when we just.
Can you do that again?
Yeah. I can do it as many times as you want, Jim.